Hi there. Wow, that's a loud echo there. Do you hear that?
Yes.
That's impressive.
I think the volume on the TV was on.
Typically, I have the voice of God. That sounded like the voice of God,
I think it is the volume of the TV. Now batting, the shortstop, number 2, Derek Jeter, number 2. Yeah, we've got the volume on the TV. That's okay. I don't even know. You're probably just hearing us like regularly.
Do you think that's reverbing into the microphone
I think it's only
for
us.
people
Oh,
at
wait.
home?
Vince is pointing a remote at the TV right now.
Yeah, but Vince is behind like an 8-foot bulletproof glass. There's no.
Echo,
we have to be protected in here, right?
I could still. Actually, it's gone. It's gone. Okay, there we go.
So do we start?
It
over?
wouldn't be. We've been off for a week, which feels like a month.
Your hair got exceptionally gray.
Yeah,
in that week off.
it's. That's how long we've been gone.
Right.
It's getting very gray. And I was looking at my notes when I was prepping for the show. We're taping this on Tuesday morning. I was prepping like Sunday night and then a little bit last night. And the last topic that we led with was Pacers Summer League, which feels like it was 100 years ago.
Right, which it was.
At this point, which is, just kind of a given for the sports cycle. But happy to be back. I think speaking of back, a lot of people sending their kids back to school.
Which is crazy.
It just still feels weird.
Can we at least
to me
introduce ourselves?
for July. But, yeah, hi. I'm Derek Schultz. This is my show. Jake is also a part of it. Query and Schultz here on the ISC
Weird that my
Sports
name would
Network.
be first in your show.
Brought to you by our friends at Bailey & Wood Financial Group. They've got their golf outing coming up a week from Thursday, which we'll be at down on the south side at Dyes Walk, always one of the highlights of the year. And all these things are happening now. The Bailey & Wood golf outing, school starting, the State Fair,
yep.
which kind of signal and the start of a new year for the show because, as many of you guys know, you celebrate with us every year. Query and Schultz began in August of 2011. So we are about to, outside of that 6-month, 7-month hiatus with the non-compete when we were fired from the radio, we're about to embark on our 14th year.
That is crazy.
14 years together, yeah.
So,
it's wild.
Like this show's getting its braces.
Yeah, I mean, this show, at this point, people have gotten braces a lot younger. I think they're getting the braces removed.
Did you have braces?
Yeah.
For how long?
Unfortunately, I had them for 3 years. You know when I had them? Freshman, sophomore, and junior year of high school.
Wow, that's late.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Well, originally they said, you're fine. You don't have crooked teeth. And then they were like, wait, hold on, you need braces. So, like, everyone had them off.
Did you have the clear plastic kind, or did you have the full
No,
metal?
I had the straight, 1980s
And man, let
metal
me tell you,
braces.
do you remember when they would tighten them?
I know, it's weird.
Wow.
There's actually a picture of me, back when digital cameras were just coming in, late in my high school years. So early in my high school years, still had, little portable, disposable. That's the word I'm looking for. And there's a picture of me smoking a cigarette with braces. Which looks kind of ridiculous. It's like, who's this 11-year-old smoking a lung dart here with braces on? But, yeah, I mean,
I
was 16.
Well, even that is ridiculous. What did you grow up in Kentucky?
No, I mean, I just, I was having to smoke I started working in restaurants, and that's when everybody smokes in restaurants. And that's when I kind of started. And it's a horrible habit, and you absolutely should not smoke. Don't ever do it. But, yeah, I did. Technically, I wasn't, regularly participating, but I'd have one, after work or something like that, and I had braces on.
Well, when you were a painter,
Oh, yeah. That was when I was my heaviest. But even then, I was never more than, 3/4 of a pack a day, maybe.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. It is the incredibly creatively and appropriately named Query and Schultz program here on the ISC Sports Network. As Derek had mentioned, we are thrilled and happy to always be partnered with Bailey & Wood, one of our sponsors for the show. Also, Love Heating and Air, another who have been very good to us. We'll tell you about them later in the program. Chateau Kitchens, another that is involved with us. So we're happy to do this each and every week. And Derek, you are right. We are towards the end of the summer and heading into, eventually, knock on wood, the turn of the leaves. But for right now, that means Colts Camp underway. Yep. And there are a lot of potential Hall of Famers, right?
On this year's Colts team?
Well, if you look at Colts Camp the first week, people are like, play of the day, so-and-so with an incredible – let's pump the brakes. But the good news is, so far, and it's only been a couple of practices, Anthony Richardson looks pretty good.
Yeah, he looks like himself and what you would expect him to be. And I also appreciated Shane Steichen and Jim Irsay and basically the Colts aligning on how they're treating Anthony Richardson, and that's that he's not made of glass, right? You can't treat him like he's going to get hurt every time he gets out there. that's going to only lead him to get hurt. So I know that a lot of fans don't like the fact that Richardson is going to have designed run plays and that he's going to get hit, but that's life as a 2024 NFL quarterback. You know, you can't ask him to be Peyton Manning. That's not his skill set. You can't ask him to be Drew Brees. That's not his skill set. That's not saying that he can't throw. He can absolutely throw. But the dude can run, and that's a big weapon, and you don't want to holster that weapon 24/7, 365.
He is just an incredible athlete in general.
Yeah.
That picture of him spiking the football, he's like 9 feet off the ground. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's wild.
But one of the things with Anthony Richardson that has been of concern maybe early in his career is just his accuracy in terms of his high throws. He when he misses targets, he overthrows. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple of the routes where he's throwing still high, but it seems to be with the less consistency than it was before. Maybe that's something. I mean, it's very early to tell, but it looks like some of the things that plagued him are still there a little bit, but he's gotten them a little more under control. But you're not talking about seeing. You know, they're not even in pads yet, right? That just begins this week. But he does appear, or it appears as though the Colts have gotten him more weapons around. And, you know, we'll see if A.D. Mitchell turns out to be a player. We'll see if Alec Pierce ever figures it out. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, and then you forget Jonathan Taylor back there. They have the potential to be a high-strike offense.
Yeah, they do. I mean, another name that if he hits, he can hit big is Jelani Woods at tight end. And they really kind of cobbled together their tight end room last year without Woods. And that was a position where they kind of made chicken salad out of chicken bleep, but they didn't have any dynamicism. I'll get that in post. 3, 2, 1. They didn't really have any like special game-breaking talent in the tight end room last year, and that's an area that needs to improve. But you're right. I mean, you know, you mentioned somebody that I'm glad.
I don't think dynamicism is a word.
Dynamicism. It's the ability to be dynamic. Dynamism. It's like anonymity.
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 I don't think.
I can't say it. It's a hard word to say. I'm glad that you mentioned a name that I so rarely hear, and that's Josh Downs. It's like, did we forget about Josh Downs? Like, what happened? Josh Downs had a tremendous rookie year and came in, and not only was
dynamicism is a belief that a reality is a dynamic.
Yeah, it's the ability to be dynamic.
It's
dynamism.
It's a theory.
Well, in theory, I want the Colts tight end room to be dynamic, and they weren't dynamic last year, so this actually still applies. My hypothesis is the Colts aren't good enough at tight end. They need to get better, and hopefully Jelani Woods helps them get there. Okay. But getting back to Josh Downs, he was much more than you could have even expected last year. He came in and produced immediately, and I think he's going to be a real beneficiary in a more dynamic, there's that word again, passing attack for the Colts. And he's a guy that we're forgetting about because Michael Pittman just got re-signed and he's your wide receiver 1. And we're talking about Alec Pierce and him keeping his job. And we're talking about, oh my God, A.D. Mitchell's the next big thing, just like Paris Campbell is the next big thing. And he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. But I think he is going to be a player that's in for a really big year. And then Jonathan Taylor being healthy. We haven't seen Taylor and Richardson both healthy at the same time.
Right.
And available at the same time. And now we're going to get to, knock on wood again, right? It's the Colts we're talking about here with injuries. Hopefully we're going to get to see that.
Well, you mentioned injuries and knocking on wood. And the reality is, Derek, that the injury bug has hit him once already. And this guy, I have a mental hurdle with the last name. Samson Ebukam. I always want to say
Ebukam.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
But Sam, really good player for them last year. I thought really played well for them. Was kind of found money in the fact that he was a signing that gave them some looks defensively.
He was Danico Autry all over again, right?
Yeah.
Where he
had a good year.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, 1 or 2 practices in, he tears his Achilles and is now out for the year. It is a position that they seemingly have, I'm not going to say depth, but they have numbers. Because now you have, and again, we're talking hybrid like defensive end/linebacker, but pass rush. You got Dio at that position. You've got Kwity Paye. You've got, in terms of the line. Then at the linebacker position, Latu. Linebacker position, you obviously have an anchor in Zaire Franklin, but they have some numbers there, but it is a loss for them.
Yeah, it's a loss because he's one of your more versatile players. He can play any down.
Right.
He can play first, second, third down. He's great against the run. He's a good pass rusher. He's just solid all around, and you can't say that about every pass rusher and edge player that the defensive lineman that the Colts have. And I agree with you. The Colts brought back Tyquan Lewis. And they drafted Latu.
And that's a nice insurance policy.
Yeah, now if they let Lewis walk, and then let's say they took a corner like everybody thought they were going to do at pick 15, we're probably having a much different conversation today.
Right.
But that's not to downgrade what it means. I think really what this comes down to, Jake, and I would have already said this even before the Ebukam injury, is it's all about Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye needs to take the next step and be a dynamic. It's our Pee Wee's Playhouse word of the day. I said the word of the day. Dynamic player at that position.
Were you a fan of Pee Wee's Playhouse?
Yeah.
Okay.
You remember the word of the day?
No, I didn't watch Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
I watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah, and the talking couch. I was a little after Pee Wee's Big Adventure, but Pee Wee's Playhouse used to watch. Kwity Paye, how about this? You want me to make a Colts comp? Kwity Paye's been a perfectly productive and reliable player. But the Colts need Kwity Paye to be Dwight Freeney, not Raheem Brock.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what he's been.
That's a pretty unfair expectation, is it not?
Kwity, well, yeah, to compare him to Hall of Famer, but he needs to be closer to that than Brock. He can't just be a guy. Raheem Brock and apples and bowling balls. Raheem Brock was like a 7th-round pick, I think, and he had a nice NFL career, right, and a productive player. But you look at Paye's stats, and it's like 9 sacks or whatever. It's fine. His pressures and QB hits aren't where Ebukam's were. He's just not. I think on paper, Paye looks like a better player than he's actually been. He's been fine, which is fine, but you want a little bit more from an edge player that you took so early in the draft.
Derek, I talk about this a lot. Sometimes players are judged not by their productivity, but by where and how they were acquired.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Kwity Paye's career right now, if he had been traded a year ago to Minnesota, Vikings people would be like, yeah, he's a nice player.
Yeah.
But because he was a first-round pick, you expect more from him, and therefore the expectation and the criteria by which he's judged is different. It just is.
You know who's my ultimate example for this NFL-wise?
Alex Smith.
Yeah. Alex Smith had a really nice career, just not a number one pick.
Alex Smith as a Kansas City Chief is an entirely different quarterback than Alex Smith as a San Francisco 49er.
Yeah. I mean, that franchise was so horribly run back then. But, I mean, if Alex Smith was – let's say Smith and Rodgers, same draft, right, were flipped. That would make a lot of sense, and I think we would remember Alex Smith's career a lot different.
Right.
Not that people knock Alex. I think most people say, hey, Alex Smith was a good player, but for a number one level pick.
That Aaron Rodgers has turned wacky, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you remember his quote when he got drafted 29th or whatever it was?
I know.
How much are how disappointed were you, because he's a Bay Area guy.
Yeah.
How disappointed were you that the Niners did not take you number 1 overall? And he paused and said, not near as disappointed as they're going to be.
Nice. I still like the Peyton quote the best, where he was talking with Irsay, apparently on the phone, and I think they were still deciding.
On the ride to the
limo. Or was
limo.
it Polian?
Well, that story's changed, because originally this story was that he was riding back to the airport with Polian and Irsay in a limo, and he turned around and said it to Polian.
Okay.
That's now been changed to he said it to Irsay.
Okay.
But he said...
Where he said, if you didn't draft me, I would have kicked your ass for the next 15 years or something.
Yeah.
Something,
if you don't draft me.
I'm paraphrasing what he ended up saying. But yeah, no, I agree. But still, it doesn't change the fact that the Colts, their pass rush has been productive and better, which is good. It's better. It's far better than it was 2 years ago, right? 2-3 years ago. But they still need somebody to emerge from that group and be more than just a guy. It's been some of its parts, and you want to see a dynamic player emerge from that group.
What was that?
Word of the day. Pee Wee's Playhouse.
I don't follow.
Word of the day.
You
said the word of the day. Everybody goes crazy when you say the word. There's alarms that go off and confetti and all.
And then how many times do they say the word of the
inanimate
day?
Objects. I mean, it just depends. There's not a set number of times you say the word of the day.
And what was Pee Wee's Playhouse about?
Just Pee Wee just chilling in his playhouse.
That's odd.
Why?
A grown man chilling out in a playhouse.
I don't see anything weird about it at all.
You ever go to the theater? You have a home theater?
I don't remember him going to a movie theater or anything like that. It was a TV show, so it wasn't even the same genre.
Was it made for kids?
Yeah, because I watched it as a kid.
Okay, well,
I watched it as a kid. Something else that I think is really more of a footnote. Obviously last year at this time it was just Jonathan Taylor contract 24/7, 365, right? I thought Ryan Kelly's comments were interesting. And I know you pointed this out on your radio show. I think you found Jim Irsay's comments on it interesting. So and how he addressed his future.
I was kind of on an island with that. Did you agree with me?
Yeah, I agree with you that I think in a way, I don't think he did this intentionally, but I think in a way Irsay, in trying to talk himself through the question, ended up unintentionally undercutting his general manager.
So let me tell you what we're talking about. Ryan Kelly has been a really good player for the Colts. He's a former first-round pick. Was he a first-round pick?
He was the last Grigson first-round pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And been a solid player at the center position, which is a position that is usually, if you can find a guy that's going to be one for a long time, you ride with that. And that's what he's been. He, in the last few years, has dealt with a number of things that have kept him off the field. He had concussions. He had a terrible tragedy with his wife where they lost a child. And he has been open, transparent, and you have to respect it about the challenges of that. He lost a lot of weight. He went into a depression. And that started kind of the chatter behind the scenes of, is this Ryan Kelly's last year? Is this Ryan Kelly's last year? That's been like a constant question mark for the last 2 or 3 years. And he did little to silence those discussions. This year when he reported for training camp, he was asked about whether or not it's the end of his career, and he said, well, we mentioned to the Colts about an extension, and they didn't seem interested in that right now. I'm paraphrasing.
They were clearly not interested, I think is again, paraphrasing. But.
And it was okay. And then Chris Ballard was asked about it, and Chris Ballard said, look, I've always said we take care of good players. I mean, that's what we do here. And he went into his – and Ballard usually is pretty transparent. And Ballard basically said, we like to reward our own. We like to reward good players.
Which is true.
But at this time, that's not a priority for us. Now, that's not to say it won't be at the end of the year. And I understand what Chris Ballard's saying. Chris Ballard's probably thinking, look, we drafted a guy that we think could be our heir apparent at center. We want to see where he is before we decide how much longer we need to extend Ryan Kelly. That makes perfect sense. Jim Irsay then speaks yesterday. Well, I say yesterday, sorry, over the weekend. And Jim Irsay shows up at training camp, goes and is asked about the Ryan Kelly situation, and says not once but twice, he's been a great player. We love Ryan Kelly, and it's a priority. And he used the word priority twice.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, Chris Ballard's going, well, it was.
I just said I wasn't a priority.
Footnote, but it's not a priority. It is now.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm alluding to, but. Kelly's entering the final year of a $50 million extension. He signed before 20. He'll be 32 in May. So after this, he'll be 31 for this entire season. And you mentioned Bortolini, the guy that they drafted, as maybe being the heir apparent, but you don't know. I mean, I remember Tony Hugo was supposed to be the heir apparent for Tarek Glenn, right? And sometimes that doesn't always work out. It works out in theory, but not in practice. I don't blame them. I don't think there's going to be a gigantic market for or a bidding war for a 32-year-old center.
Right.
So I think the Colts can approach it, and I think Kelly would like to stay, and I think the Colts ultimately would like to keep him probably on a shorter-term deal. And Kelly's, God, this will be season 9, right? 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Isn't that crazy? I mean. Did you go through this 10 years ago where, you're older than me, and now it's like...
It is weird.
Seriously? He was born in 1993, and he's almost played a decade in the NFL. It's crazy. Now that you're kind of getting here, I think it's the right move to reevaluate him. There's no rush to give him an extension.
In terms of my, being over 50 and looking at players like that relative, and, the only thing I can say is I didn't go gray as early as you, nor as rapidly.
You know what? I looked at a picture. I was telling Vince and Sean had mentioned that I'm getting a little salt and peppery. I was looking at a picture of us from early on in the show history, like 13, 14, and you still had black hair. And we're almost exactly 10 years apart. So you're right.
And we were both fat. Right?
When did you start going? No, I was very early on, but then when I got married, that's when I lost, because I cut out dairy for like 6 months, and I was doing yoga like every day, and I dropped like 25 pounds or something. And I've looked ever since. When did you start going gray?
Probably, I mean,
like right after that.
Yeah, 42.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I mean, I'll be 42 in February in 6 months.
The key is once it goes really gray, if you cut it really short, you can't tell.
Yeah. All I want is what's happening right now that's bothering me is that they're clustering, so it looks like I've got stuff in my beard, like in my mustache, like there's like 6 hairs right here that are gray, and I was just cutting out the individual ones, but now I can't. And then on my temples, the sideburns, forget it. It's a lost cause now. I was cutting them out, but forget it. It's over. It's over for me.
Yeah.
It's gone. I think we touched on all of the. I mean, there's some position battles going on. I'll leave that to the guys that do the shows every day.
They need depth at defensive back, and they need a tight end to emerge.
A tight end to emerge, and there are several players that I would call this season critical. It's now put up or shut up time. There's no more waiting, and they can't wait anymore on Jelani Woods. They can't wait anymore on Alec Pierce, and they can't wait anymore on Nick Cross. Those are 3 guys, and I think they're all from the same draft class, right? Were they all from the 20?
Nick Cross was a bit of
22.
Experiment's the wrong word, but he was uber athletic, and that's what they loved about him, right?
Let me look at the Colts draft class in 2020. I'm pretty sure they're all from the same draft class.
They're hoping that Nick Cross is not the second coming of TJ Green.
They
right?
all have to show something here, and the excuses can only go for so long, because you're just gonna have to move on. And I've been an Alec Pierce defender. I think he's better. Yeah, Pierce. Those are 3 of the first 4 picks of the 22 draft, and the other one that we're not mentioning is Ryman, who's been great. So Pierce, Woods, Cross. Pick 53, 73, and 96 from that draft, I think all need to really show something here. Because if Nick Cross can't win that job, then that's a big problem, because the Colts barely
on that, right?
The Colts barely have replacement level players that are at the back of that, Rodney Thomas and people like that are in the back of their defensive backfield.
Yeah, depth, and again, that's probably true for most teams. Depth at the defensive backfield is critical for them.
Yeah, their safety spot has to be one of the weakest spots in the entire league.
I like Julian Blackman,
I would think. Yeah, that's fair. And thank God they brought him back, right?
Yeah, you're right about that.
But overall, look, and we'll get to like season preview stuff and how we feel. But I'll tell you, speaking of put up or shut up time, I am very high on the Colts this year. And if they turn in the season,
you're chugging something.
Yeah, I'm chugging the Colts Kool-Aid. If they go like 8-9 or something, then I feel like every year we keep saying, all right, Colts are out of time here. I'm out of patience. And then we extend them more grace and we extend them more patience. And I'm talking mostly about Chris Ballard here, right? If the Colts don't make a significant step forward this year, then, I'm not saying Ballard is out or anything like that, but
well, we could have parades for him, right?
It's got to happen at some point, right? You can't
right.
just go into every season being like, this is the best Colts team in several years. This is the best Colts team in several years. This is the best Colts team in several years. And then they get their asses kicked in Jacksonville, and they go 9-8. And if they make the playoffs at all, they're quickly one and done. That's not what I want. I want more.
But you said you're chugging their Kool-Aid.
Yeah, like I think this is going to be a team that wins 12 or 13 games.
That's fair.
Is it fair? I mean, I think that's crazy.
Derek, I am not a noted gambler, but on a website, I got an over-under for them, and I went all in.
8.5?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and if it doesn't go clearly over, I think something went horribly wrong.
I mean, that to me feels like the biggest no-brainer of all time.
I know we say that, but things can change. I just really, I'm not always a Colts. I'm mostly a Colts pessimist. I mean, we've just talked about, we've done the show for 14 years. How often? And I'm like, yeah, Colts, woo! Like, I'm not trying to be like Indianapolis homer guy. But I'm convinced that Richardson's going to hit, and Richardson and Taylor, and this is going to be a dynamic offense for the Colts this year. And if the defense can just
you
stay
look ridiculous.
steady and solid,
most people listening to this are doing it on podcasts. Maybe
then we're
going to
be great.
But you do this weird thing when you say that dynamic word. But you look like an idiot when you do that.
It's the word of the day. So I don't want to draw
understand,
a crazy amount of attention to it, but if you ever use that word, you have to pause and acknowledge that we use the word.
Did Pee Wee select the word of the day? Or did somebody select it for him?
I think he just did it himself. Yeah.
And he would just say it once?
No, it just anytime it popped up, the alarms and confetti and everybody would go crazy. Pee Wee's Playhouse word of the day.
Let me see if I can find one. What else are we doing on the program here?
We got our Hoagie and Hero of the Week to get to. You want to do that?
Sure.
How about that?
I have my own nominee. I sent a picture
here,
for it.
This is a Zern's, the most unique Sando on Christina's menu.
It's a sandwich. By the way, they have a contest coming up, do they not?
They do. They have the hoagie eating contest. We're going to talk about that here in a second in the first week of September. Christina's actually going to come on the show to talk about it. Did I tell you that?
That's
I haven't
cool.
told you that yet. Lisco's Bakery bread. I just saw it last night. I was watching the Yankees and Phillies with my 7-year-old, and they had a big sign for Lisco's Bakery. She ships in the bread from South Jersey. Philly Pure. Munster. Smoked ring bologna. Really, really good. Like, not like your Oscar Mayer bologna, but special, delicious bologna. It's got like almost like a smokehouse salami type taste. A little lettuce, little 9-grade beer mustard, little mayo. And pickled egg as well. Red beet pickled egg, right from PA.
Here it says it's called the secret word. Not word of the day.
It's our secret word of the day. Like, I'm a big cured meats fan, so this is good.
It's outstanding. Mm-hmm. The bread is spectacular. Try not to drip it on yourself.
It's like soft but also crusty, and that's what you need, like the crustiness. It's the water out there. It's the water out in the tri-state.
The tri-states, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio.
No, the water in the tri-state, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, is really what makes it. And our chili water brew of the week, Landslide. Landslide IPA. Juicy Peach IPA. Were you a Fleetwood Mac person? Yeah. Billy Corgan and Smashing Pumpkins covered this.
Billy Corgan is terrible.
It's awful. It's so bad.
Billy Corgan is the worst. I'm sorry, but there's a special place in hell for people that have to just sit around and listen to Billy Corgan.
There's just something about, like, fruity beers in the summertime.
Okay, this is chili water Landslide.
Right.
This is a Juicy Peach
Yeah.
IPA, and let me tell you something. The can alone is fabulous.
Oh, God. It's just really – I'm not usually an IPA person. It's just – it's the right amount of hoppiness and the right amount of sweetness.
Very smooth.
Really great. Great summer beer. Congrats, Hero of the Week, U.S. Men's Gymnastics team. Can you shut that off?
Sorry.
First medal for the American men in gymnastics since 2008, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was actually 16 years ago. And the crowd was really into it. The team was really into it. Like, they were all, like, cheering it. And not that that's unique to Team USA. You see all the Olympians doing this with each other, but really kind of the first, we're only, 4 or 5 days into this thing. One of the first true feel-good stories for an American team was the men's gymnastics performance on Monday.
And it was, the gymnastics in general, I mean, that sport, it's unbelievable the level of
athleticism,
commitment and athleticism that goes into it. But the women's team, understandably, rightly, and in a celebratory fashion for sure, has been the storyline for 20 years in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
So for the men to kind of reemerge is great.
Well, it's funny because it's like, hey, name a women's gymnast right now.
You can
and
go
you can
20
name
deep, right?
20 and name a men's. I can't name a single
Bart
one.
Connor.
Sure. Bill Swarsky. Is that a gymnast?
Kurt Thomas.
No. Played for the Knicks.
No. There was also one that went to Indiana State that was a gymnast.
Yeah. No, played for the Knicks.
By the way, I sent
player.
Vince a photo for my nominee for Hero of the Week. See if the photo that I sent actually to Rake that was then sent to Vince, see if we can get it up.
Look at that.
This right here is Mike Byron. Derek, you know Mike Byron, right?
Yeah, of course. One of your closest friends.
In the middle is Mike's father, Dan Byron, who is one of the leading, not even one of, he is the leading media attorneys. He is the leading media attorney in the state of Indiana. What does that mean? Well, not only does it mean that he represents me, should I ever get in trouble, thank you very much, but also essentially the defender of the First Amendment for the state of Indiana and for media in general. He has gone all the way to making cases and arguing cases, defending cases at the U.S. Supreme Court. He has been Wish TV's corporate attorney, or was for the vast majority of his career, did a television show called The Law and You. But that particular photo, congratulations to Dan Byron, who was awarded the Sagamore of the Wabash. That is the highest civilian honor in the state of Indiana, presented by the governor of Indiana for a lifetime of commitment towards Hoosiers and bettering the lives in Indiana and making sure that the First Amendment is protected for everybody throughout the great Hoosier state.
That's
so
incredible.
The pride of North Vernon, Indiana, right there, Dan Byron. Not a lot of those are handed out. He is the second person that I have seen presented and been in attendance for Sagamore the Wabash. Joel Lehman, the other. But very, very cool, and congratulations.
Did the late great Dan Wakefield get Sagamore the Wabash?
I would assume he did, yes.
Okay.
Years ago.
Is that what you're going to get?
What's that?
Is your expectation that you're going to get that?
It'd be my goal in life.
Yeah, I know. Like, bigger, that'd be the biggest award possible for you. Like, more than, like, the Medal of Honor or,
yes,
like,
correct. I would be, that's my new campaign. I want the Sagamore the Wabash, I'd be buried with it.
If you ask Jake, would you want an Oscar, an Emmy, a Heisman Trophy, or the Sagamore the Wabash? You'd take the Sagamore the Wabash,
That is
right?
correct,
Yeah.
yes.
It'd be the highest honor possible. How cool.
Very cool.
And Byron looks great. He's a
does.
handsome guy for, 50, whatever he is. Whatever.
Can we pull the photo back up again?
Yeah.
Can we pull the photo
Byron
back
looks
up?
good there.
No, hold on. Pull the photo back up. Yes, I mean, Byron's a nice looking guy.
Now,
His
has he
father
remarried?
Yes.
Okay.
Anne Marie was there.
Yeah.
And then, this is the same age, right? Come on.
I mean, I'm sure his new wife is lovely, but I don't know. Like, I probably would have stayed out there. If I look, he's all done up. He's a handsome guy.
You're talking about Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's very gray.
And his dad looks like a handsome guy. How old is his dad now? 80?
Up 80. Upper 80s, yes.
yeah. But how cool. How cool to get the
Very
Sagamore the Wabash. And then, Jake's in that photo, too. Somewhere in the background. Hoagiesandhops.com, 42nd and Boulevard. Catering, they do the whole shebang, and the hoagie eating contest coming up. Let me get the date for the hoagie eating contest again, because
Poley's fired up. Greg Poley's fired up.
are you going to do it?
Darren King's fired up.
You still have not done it. I know you're worried about like the caloric intake of it, but it's not going to kill you to do one hoagie eating contest. Not going to kill you. September 7th, 8th annual hoagie eating contest at Hoagies and Hops. We'll talk about it with Christina coming up in a future show. When we come back,
How big a sandwich are you talking?
18. It's two of these guys.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, and it's a hog, so it's a big one. Since we last spoke, Pacers are all done. We'll talk about the Andrew Nembhard contract extension and the signing of James Johnson. Plus, a comment from Dawn Staley that I actually appreciated that other people got mad about when it comes to Caitlin Clark, and we'll discuss that too. It's Corey and Schultz presented by Bailey & Wood Financial Group here on the ISC Sports Network.
Tonight.
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in. It's going to be a long night.
Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC!
Nice snap.
Mortgage is a snap! Duh!
Bailey & Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back. Bailey & Wood presents Corey and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. Alongside Jake Query, I'm Derek Schultz. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Bailey & Wood Financial Group. We mentioned the golf outing is a week from Thursday at Dyes Walk, where they celebrate all the work that they've done in the community. They have a lot of cool stuff. They have the golf ball drop from the helicopter.
That's very cool.
Jeff Saturday, Mark Clayton, a lot of celebrity guests that have participated in that golf event. But the cool thing about Bailey & Wood is, and you've seen in the commercials with it, that's his son Walker. Mortgage isn't a snap, duh. And sometimes you see Bailey, who's the brown-haired, his oldest daughter. It's a family affair, right?
Totally.
With Bailey &
Whole
Wood, not
family's
just
involved.
with his actual biological family, but
Derek,
the whole group.
their
the whole
family is
workforce.
the whole south side of Indianapolis because they're
pretty
putting
much.
money back into schools and choirs and church. I mean, groups, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and Mike is a very philanthropic guy, just like you, and loves to give back, and that has trickled down to everybody involved with Bailey and Wood. So we're so excited to celebrate with them a week from Thursday, and I can't believe it's here. I almost kind of use their golf outing to measure the passage of time, and it's weird to think that this whole year has just kind of flown by.
By the way, did you hear that the Olympic Games and the Oakland Athletics kind of have something in common?
Athletes and athletics? I don't know.
The triathletes at the men's Olympics would have something in common with the Oakland Athletics at Oakland Coliseum.
Is this going to be about the time, because this is like one of my favorite stories, that your favorite stories that I ever brought up on the old radio show. They had a backup in the sewage system at the Oakland Coliseum. This was like 2015. This was at least almost 10 years ago. And there was
playing there, by the way.
There was fecal matter that was floating around in the clubhouse, and it was like they were like knee deep in the dugout as well with poo. Was there something that happened in Paris that is a problem? Is that what it is?
I don't know if I'd say that, but the river there, the Seine River,
Yeah.
there was a lot of talk, discussion, and listen, I love Paris. I mean, who am I to say? I've been to Paris one time, right?
But you loved your experience.
But it was fabulous.
As do most people. I've never heard anybody say, Paris sucked.
Yeah,
Man, it was so overrated.
It was beautiful. I mean, the city's great. I thought the people were wonderful. I have not a bad thing to say about it. But any time that you're talking about taking a city river, and as opposed to a private river, I guess, but and using it for swimming purposes, first off, the water temperature apparently is like a huge concern. But they were like, no, we've done all this treatment to it and cleaned the water, and everything's going to be fine and perfect and well and good. And for the triathlon, that is the swimming venue, and that has now been postponed because they found E. coli in the water, which I would assume is from.
Yeah, I mean, just like, this is a long shot and probably won't happen in our lifetimes, but, people have kind of talked about, hey, maybe Indy could put in a bid. Like, can you imagine having a swimming event in the White River?
Yeah.
And look, the White River isn't what it was in 1987.
Granted, the Olympic swim trials, that was the water in the pool was from the White River.
Yeah, but, heavily treated, obviously. But actually putting people in the river itself, not transporting
Right.
water from it, treating it, you know what I mean? So I feel a little bit for Paris. There's always something that goes wrong with the Olympics, and that's clearly something that went wrong. But nothing goes wrong with Bailey and Wood. 855-350-HOME, BAWFG.com. We appreciate them sponsoring the show. I didn't want to spend a whole segment on this, but I just wanted to acknowledge it because it happened since we last spoke. But the Pacers are now done on their offseason.
Right.
Andrew Nembhard signs an extension, which I was surprised a little bit that, I thought that he might carry it into the year, but it makes sense for him, a 3-year, $58 million extension, because it gives him a substantial raise, kicks in after this coming season. It'll pay him almost 10 times more than his rookie deal. And instead of hitting the market at 28, which he would have as a UFA, he's now going to hit
Undrafted free agent.
Unrestricted.
Unrestricted, excuse me.
That's why I said UFA, not UDFA. He's now going to hit at 27. So Nembhard gets a substantial raise for right now and gets to reset the market for himself again when he turns 27, when he's, hypothetically at the peak of his prime.
Now,
So
the question is going to
deal.
become, by then, who wins the gamble here?
Well, I think really what this extension does is now put into serious question and serious peril Miles Turner's future with the Pacers, because now you've extended Nembhard, right? You've given the big extension to Siakam. You've locked in Halliburton as well. Neesmith got his, at the beginning of last year, right? I mean, you have all of these core players that are now signed through 26, 27 at the earliest.
Matherin's the big question mark
And
here,
then,
right?
yeah, and then you have this rookie group that's coming up here, but you've got to address Turner next year. Like, you don't have 2 years left on Turner's deal. He's in a contract year. And Turner, rightfully so, is going to want to be paid. He's been an important player for them. And he was paid the last time, and he's going to be expected to get it again. and you've got McConnell coming up as well. I mean, you have questions here, and there's just not enough money to keep everybody.
I know.
The math doesn't work out.
It does feel like, Derek, that's the thing. It feels like, man, where did all this money come from? Because it's like Oprah.
Yeah.
You get a contract, and you get a contract, and you get a contract. Matherin's the one that you wonder about the timing of it, right?
They're going to have to say no to somebody. And I think it probably, with where we sit today, if I'm assuming that Matherin becomes what they hope he becomes, which I think he will, I think that odd man out is probably Turner.
Based on age, right? Not that he's old, but
based on price.
Yeah, well,
I think really is what it is. I think if the Pacers had their choice, they would bring back Miles Turner, but it's just I just don't know if it's going to be feasible.
Right.
Now, they could still make a trade, right? They could trade Matherin and Walker or both guys and throw in Isaiah Jackson.
I'm very curious to see what Walker is this year.
Ben Shepherd, I don't know. They could trade some of these players and make a consolidation trade. They could even trade Nembhard eventually and make some sort of consolidation trade, which changes the math for them. But I don't think that I think the problem still is, and this is a good problem to have, they have too many good players, and you can't keep all of them.
They do. I mean, who's their worst player?
Well, Doug McDermott's not on the roster really anymore, right? I mean, Doug McDermott would be the worst player.
Of the non-two-way players, who is their worst player?
James Johnson, probably, at this point in his career.
Guess,
He's 37.
I mean, he's just a...
Yeah, because even, James Wiseman, I'm thinking of the guys that are at the very back.
You, man, I love the Wiseman signing.
That are at the very back of the roster. I mean, I think those are the guys that would qualify.
Right.
Furphy.
And I asked that question...
And I wouldn't qualify any of those guys as bad.
I ask it rhetorically. That's the point. They don't really have major weak links.
No.
I want to see what Jarris Walker can do, though. I'm intrigued by it, but I want to see it because it's got to start happening now.
Yeah, Summer League was a little bit uneven. It was a little bit up and down. I think we could have seen more. But I'm fascinated to see.
Doesn't Johnny Furphy sound like the first name of a guy that would be like the lead singer of the Dropkick Murphys?
Yeah, big time. Or like a Saturday morning cartoon or something like that. I'm excited to see what the Pacers can unlock this year.
Speaking of the Dropkick Murphys, have you been to Ireland?
No.
Scotland?
Mm-mm. England.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were a little kid, right?
4th grade.
We're going to Ireland and Scotland.
Nice.
Have
you been?
No. But I get to do my voice.
Bring a raincoat.
Huh?
Bring a raincoat.
We're past that.
Please don't do your voice.
What do you mean?
Please don't do your Scottish voice. It's really bad.
What?
Your Irish voice.
Do you have looking for a cup of coffee?
It's so bad.
No, actually, it's more this. Hi, the top of the morning to you.
That's just racist, offensive.
I don't think that's racist.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
So I wouldn't pull that one out.
What?
I wouldn't go top of the morning to you to anybody in Ireland. I would not do that. It'd be like
good day, top of the morning to you.
It'd be
looking
like
for a little bit of Lucky Charms.
It'd be like going to Italy and just doing this whenever you had a
I did that
conversation
all the time.
with somebody else.
Bellissimo.
It's 2024. We got to be careful. We're not in the Super Mario Brothers era. Piston Honda, things like that.
Boy, some of those fighters on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
A little bit insensitive. Yeah.
Soda Popinski.
Yeah. The Great Tiger who had a jewel in his turban that would light up, and that's when you uppercut him. Yeah, stuff like that we've kind of left in the past. Different time, different expectations. Love that play. Let's get to that. You had just mentioned the Olympics, brought to you by our friends at Love Heating and Cooling. 353-2141, love-hvac.com. They've been in business since 1920, so they're going to take care of you like they have for so many generations.
104 years, Derek.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I remember their 100th.
I do, too.
This is the first year that we started. They canceled that party because of COVID, right?
4 generations deep.
Did they end up having it in 21? I think
they did have a party at Devon Country Club, yep.
Yeah, I knew that they had kind of changed that around. I really liked – I'll admit that, and this is going to make me biased. I like Dawn Staley. I know not everybody likes
her.
Dawn Staley. She's maybe a little bit confident. I think she's allowed to be confident because she's been great. I loved her as a player. My sisters loved that 96 Atlanta Olympics team that she was on. And now as a coach, she's doing big things at South Carolina. And so I just want to preface there because, people are like, well, you're biased. Yeah, of course I'm biased. Everybody's biased. People were really mad about what she had to say about Caitlin Clark, basically admitting a mistake and being like, why didn't you see this in the first place? But I think her stance is defensible. So what happened was during the Olympic coverage, Mike Tirico's got this whatever fireside chat with Dawn Staley, right? And he asks her about Caitlin Clark and her being excluded from Team USA this year. And I think she could have dug in and been like, you know what? She's a rookie. We made the right choice. This is the best league in the world. We've got a lot of great players. And she actually just kind of alluded to the fact, she didn't downright say it, but she kind of insinuated that it's a decision that aged poorly. And I think it takes a lot to
admit your mistake.
Right. Yeah, even if you're not directly doing so. Here's the quote from Staley. Quote, Caitlin, who's just a rookie in the WNBA, she wasn't playing bad, but she wasn't playing the way that she is now. If we could do it all over again, she would be in really high consideration for making the team. And that she's more seasoned now in the pro game after a couple of months. Because you remember back in early June, the Fever were whatever they were, 3-10 or whatever they were. And she was fine, but she wasn't breaking WNBA records for assists and doing, this last stretch, she's been incredible.
Do you remember, I use this analogy every once in a while, but do you remember in the mid-'90s, I think it was called Magic Eye, there was a Seinfeld episode all about it when Mr. Pitt couldn't see it. But there was about a 6-week craze in every mall in America where they sold artwork that was a computer-generated thing that you had to stare at it, and then eventually like a 3D image would come into your eye, and you're like, oh my gosh, and it says, go Hoosiers or go Colts or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
No. Sounds cool.
You don't remember the Magic Eye art?
No.
It was all the craze of the mid-'90s.
Spent a lot of time in malls in the mid-'90s. I worked in a mall, and
Okay. They always had a kiosk that had these. People just be standing there staring at them. But
I remember staring at the Beepers kiosk. Wanting to get a pager. Hit me on my hip.
Okay. Well, regardless, you would sit and stare at this art, and then all of a sudden it would kind of slowly come together, and then boom. Once you saw it, there was no unseeing what the art was. That's Caitlin Clark with the WNBA. Once it came together for her, and boom, you could see what it was, there's really no going back now. Sure, you're going to have the occasional bad game, but in terms of just her passing ability, I think her teammates figured that out. I think she figured out her teammates and spacing and timing, and so often when she would do like a step back, you thought she was stepping back for an open three, and now you realize that she was stepping back a lot of times to create passing angles. It's come together, and it's come together quickly, and she's here. She's arrived. I'm not. Maybe we'll see with the layoff a dip back. I don't think so. But, yes, what Dawn Staley is saying is correct. And the fact that it took a while. Not as long as it was for most players. But the first couple of weeks you understood, it was coming together slowly. And then once it finally gelled and clicked, it's there.
Yeah, and I do think that the decision was a poor one.
Sure.
I'm pro Caitlin Clark, and I think they were kind of missing the forest through the trees a little bit. It would have been a big deal to have Caitlin Clark on this roster, and now I think I saw attendance-wise their first game with Japan was the lowest attended of the women's basketball game so far. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that Caitlin Clark. Now, the counter-argument is that the team's about the team instead of just being about Caitlin Clark. I mean, she would have taken a big chunk of the attention, right? So I can understand the counter argument there, but I do think that there were some egos involved, as there always are with these selections, and everybody's anointing Caitlin Clark, and there were probably people on that. I'm not saying this was Staley, but there were people on that selection committee that I'm sure wanted to slam on the brakes.
I think it's best case scenario for the Indiana Fever, though. You keep her in the conversation, but you keep her on ice.
Oh, I think it's the best thing for her too to
Right.
get the break.
Right.
And she's been going at it kind of nonstop. So I think it's ultimately a good thing. 353-2141 love-hvac.com. We'll come back. Quick hits, couple more Olympics thoughts, and Chateau Kitchen's Buy It or Bold Bleep to wrap up the show. It's Corey and Schultz, presented by Bailey & Wood Financial Group here on the ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey &
Welcome back. Bailey & Wood presents Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Thanks to Vince. Thanks to Charlie. I would thank Jordan, but he's not even here. Rake's not even here. So no thanks to them. JD's not employed anymore. He's moved on to your grandpa's Old Fashioned.
That's right.
Doing a great job. We're happy for JD and being a marketing guy. But the ISC team is great. Vince has been good today. We had the snafu earlier on, but grading on a curve for Vince, a B-B is about the best.
You know what? Vince is my guy. Vince is a 10 out of 10 because Vince is in the same fraternity as me as Cat Guy.
10 out of 10. I can't agree with.
I see him working hard at Pacer games.
Oh, 10 out of 10 for work ethic, sure. Execution, I think sometimes he's like an 8 on this show.
Derek, you're wearing John Stockton shorts.
Yeah, aren't they great?
No.
I think this is great. I'm getting more sun where I haven't had sun before. Now, it doesn't creep up all the way to here, but I do. This looks more sunned, right? But like on the sides, it's still pretty pale. But yeah.
Are we done?
It's nice. You didn't look.
Yeah, I know.
You weren't looking.
By the way, we're going to be at the Dairy Bar coming up, right?
We are. We got to pick a date though that works for both of us. My August is crazy. I know yours is kind of too.
Mine's not at all.
Oh, really? It's not? Okay. I'm just busy.
What do you have?
All kinds of stuff. Jake, I'm a father. So, don't you hate that when people with kids act like they're just insanely busy, like you're not?
All
busy?
I am, by the way, is a childless cat parent.
That's right.
Who's taking November off because
what's wrong with this country? Give me back my tax money. What's your favorite Summer Olympics event to watch?
So, the thing I love about the Olympics, number one, it's just fun to have on like in the background all the time. I don't necessarily like the time difference, only because you forget when you're watching something in prime time. You're like, wait a minute, this was like 6 hours ago.
I already saw it or know about it.
Right. But I like watching the events that you would normally not see. I mean, obviously swimming's exciting. The basketball, it goes without saying. Everybody wants to see what happens there. But Derek, honestly, handball?
Handball's pretty sweet, yeah.
Water polo? The events you don't normally see. And some of the events, too, that you realize how incredibly hard they would be. And also, how would you know you have a skill in it? Pole vault, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point when you're a kid, if you're super fast, a coach or something's like, well, you're really fast, you should go into track.
Tall. Hey, play basketball.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
But certain skills, you're like, where or how does somebody even learn that they have that type of a skill? But I think archery's fun to watch. I think badminton's fun to watch.
This isn't so much fun to watch because I have no idea what's going on. But I appreciate it. Is fencing.
Fencing?
Right?
That's what fencing
it's like
is.
From a different time.
It's laser tag for people in bee outfits.
Yeah.
Beekeeper outfits.
It's like going back to a different time. And some of the horse events, and I know that they had, what is it, dressage? Dressage or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it's called. They've had some problems with people, like hitting the horses and doing these awful things. And maybe we need to just sunset those sports. But there are some that are just like from an ancient time. And fencing, I feel like, is one of those.
Right.
Let's get to our quick hits, which is unsponsored, by the way, which is shocking. Derek at QuarryandSchultz.com.
The wildly popular and shockingly unsponsored quick hits. We need a sponsor for this.
Our poor buddy Sam Rumsa, our poor buddy Dave Revson, who I know you just had on the show last week.
There's a fun fact here.
You just went to see them. The poor White Sox.
Okay, hold on.
And we're taping this right now on
Do
Tuesday
we have
morning.
the photo of us at the White Sox game?
You and Shannon?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. There it is right there.
Okay.
Or just Shannon.
There's an item of note here with this.
Okay. I don't know. What's the item of note? That she's drinking a beer?
Go ahead, and then I'll tell you.
Okay. White Sox dropped their 15
how
straight.
hot is she, by the way?
They came from ahead to lose to the Royals. They gave up 6 runs in the 8th inning with a 5-2 lead, including a grand slam to Bobby Wood Jr. The White Sox are 27-82. They are 55 games below 500. They have a worse record right now
I'm going to argue that.
than the 1962 Mets did through 109 games. So listen to this, Jake. 120 losses, right? The worst season ever. To match 120 losses, the White Sox would have to finish 15-38, which is a .283 winning percentage. Their current winning percentage is .248. It's not unreasonable to think that the White Sox could lose 125 games. Like there's bad, 100 losses. You have to be a pitiful team to lose 100 games. You have to be really bad. Baseball is built for parity. but the White Sox are considerably worse than a 100-loss team.
What you're looking at right there. You remember when we went to the game?
Yeah.
July 10th.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
Okay. That's the White Sox last victory.
Wow.
They've not won a game since we went.
Wow. The Shannon Walsh curse.
That's or blessing. They needed to go to every game, right?
Do you know how many playoff series the White Sox have won in the last 100 years?
Series?
How many years they have won a playoff series in the last 100 years?
Okay, wait a minute. Which are we talking here?
So not how many playoff series, how many years, because they won a World Series, right? How many years they won a playoff series. So a season in which they won a playoff series. Do you know how many times that has happened in the last 100 years for the White Sox?
1.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we call the Cubs the lovable losers, the Cubs have a better history than the White Sox do.
And the question is, are the White Sox going to stay in Chicago?
I mean, you'd hope so with all their history there, right? The problem is it's a lot of bad history. I've always felt bad. Like they are the most pitiful major pro sports franchise that there is, I think. Because the 1 year that they did anything, no one cares. Like literally no one outside of a White Sox fan can tell you anything about the 2005 World Series or Wyatt, a great moment. Like they remember their players. Like they think that like Paul Konerko and Mark Burley and Maglio Ordonez are these great players. And I'm like, I don't care about any of those guys. None of those guys did anything to me that was significant to my life as a sports fan.
Wasn't it just like 3 years ago they were the best team in baseball?
I know. They were on the rise. It just crashed and burned.
Tony La Russa was the manager, right?
Yeah, well, that was not celebrated. But they had a great young prospects coming up and all of that, and I don't even know what happened. I didn't follow it closely enough to see how they imploded.
There was rumor that they were going to move to Nashville, and where we just were, by the way.
Yeah, cool town.
It is cool, and then I think fan interest lost, and sell the team and and now it's just everybody's kind of thrown in the towel.
Yeah, it's sad because they've been around for, like I said, 100 years, 1901, and while they don't have a lot of winning history, I know a lot of White Sox fans, and I just feel bad for them. I mean, you think of like other franchises in sports that you would say they kind of have a sad sack history, like the Mets. The Mets have had considerably more success than the White Sox have had. The Seattle Mariners, I know they haven't won a World Series, have had more consistent successful seasons.
The Marlins?
The Marlins. I mean, I'm trying to pick a team, and I know I'm talking about the Mets and Mariners who came in the mid-century, right? But teams with a little more history than 30 years, because you're talking about a century plus for the White Sox. But I do, I'm not trying to be a jerk to the White Sox. I'm just saying, like, I feel bad for their fans that they have to deal with this. Jack McCaffrey heading to Butler, a top 100 recruit. And the reason why that name is interesting to people in central Indiana, Jack is the younger brother of Patrick, who is dating Caitlin Clark, who's most famous for being Caitlin Clark's boyfriend. Right. And the son of Fran McCaffrey, the head coach at Iowa. 72nd overall prospect by ESPN. He's the number 90 prospect on 247sports.com, and the top player in Iowa, which probably isn't hard to do. Chose the Bulldogs over Virginia Tech and Wake Forest.
He didn't look at Iowa?
They didn't offer him. I wonder if his dad just said, just go, like, he had an issue a year or two ago where he had just gotten his driver's license and he hit a pedestrian and the pedestrian died.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I don't know if that impacted his recruiting at all. Right. I mean, he got, like, I don't even think it was arrested. I think he got cited for it. But, yeah, I in reading up on him, I don't want to present that information as this impacted his recruiting. But
now, your parents, when you were a younger guy, they basically said that, right?
Said
you grew up in Connecticut, and then your parents said, like,
what's and this is the best thing that a parent can do. What's great about my parents is that they said, do whatever you want, choose your own path, go wherever you want. So if I were to go to UConn, they would have been cool with that. If I would have gone to Eastern Connecticut State, they would have been a little bit disappointed, but they would have been cool with that.
You didn't get into UConn, did you?
I did get into UConn.
Okay.
So I applied to 4 schools.
UConn.
And I got into all 4.
Eastern Connecticut.
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah. You're not going to think of the 4th one. It's a very obscure university.
Public or private?
Private.
What state?
Pennsylvania.
Allegheny.
No, but you're kind of on the right path.
Carlisle.
It's called Lycoming. It's in Williamsport. And my middle sister was interested, Dorothy. Actually, I think it might have been Abby that was interested. Like small little, I think, liberal arts school. And so she took a visit, and so we were like, let's just take the whole family out there and visit. And so I visited too. And if I chose a smaller school, it would make sense. They were basically going to let me like run their radio station and do all of that. And I felt like I was still kind of close to home. But ultimately, I wanted big school far away.
Did you get in?
I got into all four. Yeah, Eastern Connecticut State was my safety. And I got into all four. I really didn't want to go to UConn. But I applied there because I wasn't entirely sure I was going to get. I met the minimum requirements at Indiana. The minimum requirements in Indiana were for out of state were 3.1 and 1100, and I had a 3.1 and 1100 on my SAT.
Man, those were such stressful days. Like, are you going to get in? You apply.
But the thing for me too is that like a lot of people that I talked to at IU were like, well, I had a 4.0 GPA, and it's like, where did you go to high school? Lagodi. It's like, you know, where I went to high school was a good academic. It wasn't some farm town.
Well.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just, you know, it's like when I went, and this was the case for you too because you went to a big school. When I wanted to participate in athletics at my high school, you had to try out. And then you were selected based on tryouts. Here in Indiana, I came to learn from being with other kids that went to 1A schools.
I'm Derek Schultz.
Hey, I played quarterback.
I was educated at the prestigious Trumbull Hall.
I played
not
quarterback
one of your farm schools.
At my high school, and then I was the starting pitcher for the baseball team, and I was also the point guard for the basketball team.
Honda
That's
Civic,
cool.
not
How many
a
kids
John
were in your
Deere.
graduating class? 48? Of course you did all those things. You signed up to do it. Who else was going to play quarterback and point guard? One of the other 17 males that were in your high school class?
If I had gone to your small farm school, I too would have been wrestling against boys.
I take
but
that back.
Unfortunately, it was a female that pinned me at Trumbull High.
Farm school was the wrong term, and I appreciate our farm schools in rural areas.
I understand
They're
what
great.
you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
But there was you know, it was different for
my
me.
graduating class sent somebody to every Ivy League school.
Yeah.
And that was not our valedictorian.
Yeah, like, and same for us. The person that was number one in our class went to Harvard, and the number two went to Brown.
Yeah.
And the number three went to Duke.
What's the most prestigious school that was not represented amongst your graduating class? I don't think we had anybody at Stanford.
We didn't have anybody at Stanford.
You're below me, Stanford, yes, but
we had two that went to Michigan, Harvard, Yale,
Duke,
Brown,
do you have any Duke?
Duke was our third. Josh Macaron, who was the manager of the basketball team. Vanderbilt, we had one.
We had a Northwestern. Notre Dame?
We didn't. We had two that went to Notre Dame. I don't think we had anybody that went to Northwestern.
Okay.
Because that's a great school too.
Yeah.
We had a girl that went to UCLA.
MIT?
No.
I don't think we had an MIT either.
Or Cornell. I don't think
we had all Ivy Leagues.
I don't think we had all Ivy Leagues.
Colgate?
I don't think we had.
I always throw that in because I have no idea if Colgate
feels like
a
great school.
Yeah,
Colgate feels like. But you know what? It's funny. I do think that some people from out of state think that like Purdue is Vanderbilt because they don't know, right? Because it's like, oh, it's Purdue.
Kind of
it must
is,
be
right?
private, and it's
Right.
like, no, it's a public land grant. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different. Sorry, we're way off track now because
fine.
you got us. You know, Jake's disparaging farm schools over here.
That's right.
We come back on the show, Bite or Bold Bleep, and we'll wrap up. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC, which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in. It's going to be a long night.
Bailey and Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC,
Nice snap.
mortgages and a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
This is kind of crazy. Okay, well, I guess they've had three. White Sox have only had 3 100-loss seasons, but 2 of them have come in the last 5 years. They lost 100 games in 18, and then they lost 101
What'd you
last
say the
year.
record is currently?
They are 27-81.
Not bad.
In 21, they won 93 games.
So here's my question.
That's crazy. They won the division. They won 93 games.
If they're 27-81, are they 54 games under 500? Or are they...
Or 27-82 because they're 55.
Okay. So 27-82. So they played 109 games.
Yeah.
To be 500, they would have to be 54-54. I mean, if that was 108, let's say. So does that
So
put them
aren't
at
you
27
yeah.
below? Or that's,
the way that I've always looked at it is they would have to win 55 games in a row to be 500.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's why you're below. But I understand your argument. It sounds a little weird. Chateau Kitchens.
That'd be something if they win 55 in a row.
ChateauKitchens.com, at Chateau Kitchens on Instagram and Facebook. Next week's show, finished basement pictures.
No nudity.
Next week's show. No full nudity. I was thinking about starting an OnlyFans. Public figure. I'm happily married and all of that, but I do think that could be a money generator.
You have no
anything
fans
on
to
the
begin with.
interior or interior of your home, basement, living room, bathroom. Chateau Kitchens can take care of you. Beautiful before and after pictures at Chateau Kitchens, Instagram and Facebook. They are tremendous. They've basically revitalized our house into our dream home, thanks to our friends at Chateau Kitchens, ChateauKitchens.com. If the Colts miss the playoffs, the season is a failure. Buy it or bull bleep.
Yes, 100% buy it.
Of course.
We've been talking about this for too long. I even heard
Yeah.
Jim Irsay, God love him, mention that, Andrew retired. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
How long now?
It's 5 years.
Yeah.
I think nationally there's a very different perspective. I think if the Colts went 9-8, most people nationally be like, fine. Here, I think that would be, and miss the playoffs, it's no good. I want them to win a playoff game. That feels like a bridge too far.
Another game.
So, yeah, absolutely, season's a failure. Buy it. Bryce Young will end up as the worst quarterback of the first 4 taken in 2023. Buy it or bull bleep.
That would include Bryce Young,
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, and
Levis.
No.
Levis is apparently having a really good camp, and they're really
I
excited
think
about
Levis is a good player, but I think Bryce Young will be okay.
I'm worried Bryce Young stinks.
It's possible.
I'm going to buy it. I'm worried that all of the apprehension that we had about Bryce Young's size and the fact that the Panthers are such a poorly run franchise. Say what you want about Tennessee. Tennessee hasn't always cloaked itself in glory. It still seems to be a competent franchise for the most part, right? And clearly the Texans are on the rise, and the Colts have been a well-run franchise with a few warts here and there. So I'm actually going to buy it. Statement 3, kids should never go to school in July.
Oh, 100% buy that.
I understand
It's
balance
ridiculous.
schedules.
No, it's ridiculous.
Look, I get it.
I loved the summertime where you're like, I just can't wait till I don't know what day of the week it is.
I will say this. I do think that this year, I think there are some kids that started Monday. I think this year I'm seeing August 1st more. I don't know when the IPS official date was, but I'm seeing August 1st more. So at least it's August. Because I've seen like July 26th, sometimes kids in Brownsburg.
Man,
or something
summer's
school.
for like
This is
riding your
crazy.
bike and swimming with kids and playing capture the flag and going to camp and
I just refuse to mentally accept that summer ends on August 1st.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I will never accept that.
Right, that's fair.
Summer does not end on August 1st. I mean, the leaves don't start changing here until like October 15th.
Right.
So it takes a while. But I love fall. I know you hate it because it means the winter is coming. I love fall. I love this stretch that we're about to embark on. September and October are my favorite months.
Fair.
The entire year. Football, college football. We didn't even talk college football.
I think I'm going to the Clemson game against Stanford.
Yeah. A league game.
That's right.
It's so stupid.
An ACC
It's
game.
the stupidest thing ever. I'll say, well, buy it or bull bleep. I think Indiana and Purdue will both finish better than where they're picked, and that's not saying much. Indiana especially because their schedule stinks.
Kurt Signetti, man.
Their schedule stinks.
I'm all in on Indiana, but Signetti better deliver because he's talked a big game.
They need that attitude, though.
I know.
They need that attitude, but he's definitely put himself out there, for sure. And I think Indiana is a whole different ball of wax than anywhere else that he's ever taken the job. I know that he's rebuilt a couple of programs. Indiana and their history and their fan base, whole different ball of wax, man. And he'll figure that out. But he's a sharp guy, and I like his attitude. And I like Ryan Walters. He's a very confident guy too. So we'll see. Thanks to Vince. Thanks to Charlie. Thanks to all of our great
How
sponsors.
about this? Bite or bull, Schultz? Someone other than Ohio State win the Big Ten.
Oregon.
Okay.
Hoagies and Hops, Bailey and Wood Financial Group, Chateau Kitchens, Love Heating and Cooling. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. For Charlie, for Vince, for our entire crew. We'll see you next time. here on Corey and Schultz,
With
ISC
no
Sports
nudity.
Network. See Vince late on the draw.
At Bailey.